One, there are several drugs out there, including the newer ones that humans are taking, especially nowadays since the last few years, and people coming in and out of the countries and stuff. I've personally heard about people who are taking these new types of drugs, and it doesn't snap them out of it. They'll jolt around. People have died from it, and this is street stuff, but also even pharmaceuticals itself. There are newer types of things out there, even the ones on mainframe, that aren't good. They have side effects. The ones that are supposed to fix the mind have side effects too. And then they come with all these other new ones. What does that do? You know, and then people get these other side effects, and then something else new happens. It goes around and around and around in a circle. I'm not, I don't know. Maybe not everybody's aware of this.
Everybody, welcome to episode 61. Blue, how are you doing?
I'm great today, Mike.
Hey, I look forward to a huge episode 61. What are we going to talk about today?
Project MK Ultra, CIA 1950s to 60s chemical mind control, inappropriate chemical agency and pharmaceutical platforms, as well as other inhibited forms that maintain negative attributes towards mankind and were brought here to this country.
Sounds interesting. Sounds relative to what's going on in the world today. Sounds like I'm just going to tell you, I've used that term more in the past month than I have in a long time. So I look forward to talking about that MK Ultra. Hey, before we get started, before we get going here, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Please make sure you click on like, subscribe, click on notifications so you're notified when we, follow all those fun words. This way you're notified when we post new material. Also, you can always contact us on the socials. We do respond, and you can be part of the show here. There's a link here for merch. We got a bunch of stuff to offer there. Go ahead, be part of the team there. Click on the merch link. Blue, let's get started. I'm excited for 61.
Yes, in the 1950s, the CIA's Project MK Ultra was an illegal program of human experiments that aimed to develop drugs and procedures that could be used to weaken people and force confessions through brainwashing and psychological torture during interrogations. As part of the project, the CIA investigated LSD, lysergic acid diethylamide, was utilized as one of the agents. And the one who corporately brought this fundamental thing into proposition at the time was a CIA chemist, Sidney Gavied, head of the agency's secret MK Ultra program, which was charged with the developing mind control drug. And unfortunately, because of this, which were covertly funded at the time, did not measure out, eventually went out of commission, and he motivated himself to researching on a different wavelength.
Wow. I find that interesting what you just said there, and a couple things just come to my mind. And the most recent thing you said was that, oh yeah, well, we dissolved that project. There's nothing to see here. To me, that reeks of people found out about it. Now we got to act like we're not interested anymore. We're not doing it anymore. So, with the recent situation involving 45 and the shot taken at him, the first thing I said was, this kid isn't that smart. This kid doesn't have all what it takes. And this kid could have taken down the free world and any positive possibility we have of a free world in the near future here. There's no way this 20-year-old doofus did this on his own. Just look at the evidence, folks. If you've been following along, great. But let me tell you something. This MK Ultra stuff, this is real in my mind because I see this every day. And they could call them up and activate them. They could do it with a tone. They could do it with a keyword like hit hypnosis. There's all sorts of ways they can do this. Blue, I laid it out there where I'm at. Do you think this recent shot at 45 could be part of this MK Ultra type thing?
It could have been another program of mind control, but that certain part that affiliated during the 1950s and 60s had to do with LSD. And obviously it did not cooperate on good levels because they tried to put it in terms with prisons, in terms of hospitals and other affiliated codes to see what it will do to humans as guinea pigs. And mind control, just the type of elements that are produced with it. I mean, Whitney Bulger was one of the prisoners who volunteered for what he was told was an experiment aimed at finding a cure for schizophrenia. And part of the experiment was given LSD every day for more than a year. He later realized there's nothing to do with schizophrenia. It was a guinea pig in the government experiment aimed at seeing what people's long-term effects or reactions to LSD would come to. And I'm going to be honest with you, that's just a one. There are several drugs out there, including the newer ones that humans are taking, especially nowadays since the last few years, and people coming in and out of the countries and stuff. I've personally heard about people who are taking these new types of drugs, and it doesn't snap them out of it. They'll jolt around. People have died from it. And this is street stuff, but also even pharmaceuticals itself. There are newer types of things out there, even the ones on mainframe that aren't good. They have side effects. The ones that are supposed to fix the mind have side effects too. And then they come with all these other new ones. What does that do? You know, it's and then people get these other side effects, and then something else new happens. It goes around and around and around in a circle. I'm not, I don't know. Maybe not everybody's aware of this. Not everyone's aware of what the chemicals are doing to them, that what they're being ensnared into a program for. If you really want to heal people, use generic medicines that are good for you. Stuff made from the lands that could be calculated that way. If you want to go to hypergeneric technologies, quantum technologies, maybe, just maybe, a Neuralink and a Neurotech standard could help. Or a Neurotech itself to re-signalizing the membranes and the neurons that are being lost within the mind codes. The medicines and the shots, they only do so much because they're testing it. They're testing it with other things. You have no idea what it's about. And the street drugs and the newer types of street drugs there has to be a cutoff. And you can't just say it's the people doing it coming in. You have to just say governments are doing stuff too. Governments are causing controls, and that's have to stop.
Without a doubt. And the three things that pop into my mind as you were talking here. Number one, we could flash back less than 100 years and think of a country who purposely tested on humans LSD type drugs, meth, all sorts of different tolerances for humans. I'm talking, of course, about the Third Reich in Germany when they were testing on the Jewish people in the Holocaust. The next thing that comes to mind is, what country could be doing this today? Immediately, China comes to mention in my mind, because a lot of people aren't aware. They also harvest human organs because it's a market. They'll take prisoners or nut jobs, and nearing the end of their term, they'll just harvest their organs and give them to somebody else or sell them to somebody else. There's a huge black market thing that goes on. And the last thing that comes to mind to me is, how could they possibly give everybody a drug to control their mind? If only there was some sort of sickness and we already had the cure and we could make everybody take it. Can you imagine? No wonder half the country's asleep here. No wonder half the country thinks it's okay that the way things are being run right now. It's crazy. It's crazy. So you believe in this country here? I mean, let me make sure I understand, because this is what I believe, but you don't have to believe the same thing I believe, of course. We're still practicing this in our country today with different pharmaceuticals and different methods, possibly.
Absolutely. There are, and like I said, there are things that have gotten a whole lot worse. And even through hospitals, people, and mind control goes through variables of wanting to get medicines that make you feel good or take away your pain, even high intoxicated ones. Then you got to come back for it. You got to come back for it. You got to come back for it. It's an addiction. It's a form of mind control.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Now, I think that part of the mind control, I mean, there's so many different arms to it. The government, you got big pharma, you got the media, and then you got the young and upcoming generations whose minds are very malleable, and you can, instead of teaching them how to learn, which is something you're supposed to learn in college and universities and high schools and so forth, instead of teaching them how to learn, we're teaching them what to learn. That's the brainwashing part. So there's several moving parts to this, as you can see. It's crazy, and I hope we can get the right leadership back in this country. I'm hoping we can dissolve a lot of these programs, and I'm hoping we can defend ourselves and deflect what other countries are doing in this respect here. You know, you take a look at what's going on at our southern border. You know, Chinese immigrants coming in by the thousands, and immigrants from other countries that hate us as well. But when they all come in looking the same, dressed the same, wearing the same backpack, flying their flag, and there's thousands of them at a time, who's to say when the next MK Ultra type event is going to happen? Maybe some signal is going to be sent out throughout the country, and these thousands of people here are going to do something against us. I hate to be all gory and dark on stuff like that, but it's a reality, folks. And if you're living in the mind buzz of mainstream media, you're not even thinking about this. This isn't even on your map. You have no idea this can happen. You know, there's a guy that once said, and I'm losing it right now off the top of my head, that the greatest sin that a man can do against his country is to not do anything when wrong is being done, saying that doesn't affect me in my everyday life. Well, time out, buddy. First of all, it does affect you. You just are too stupid to realize it. And second of all, it's going to affect me and my family and the whole country. We need to pay attention, folks. We need to do the right things. We need to put the right people in power. Is there anything else to talk about with the MK Ultra here, Blue?
Well, just the main thing is the amount of drugs and the variables put in certain drugs and new ones, whether it's pharmaceuticals, whether it's a cooperative event through certain militaries and governments, or whether it's just street drugs that are affiliated to a new sort, have to be compromised. They have to be decommissioned. They have to be taken out. Because we've got all these people coming in, and it's not just because of violence. We got all these people coming in, and they're bringing in unknown substances and things that would harm others. And you never know if they're putting it into things. If these people are working at stores, or they're working through other fabricated codes, and then they're mixing things with things. Or they're doing things behind the scenes that others are not even aware of. And it could pose an even greater sickness upon the realm. And it also goes for those in this country, too. We need a major cleanse. We need to bring corporal peace, corporal understanding, corporal laws, protection. Come on, get your mindsets right.
Hey, what's going on with this forest and the disappearances here in Romania?
The Hoai Baciu forest in Romania, time-dimensional overlay portals. Now, with this certain particular forest itself, considered one of the most haunted forests in the world, and is sometimes referred to as the Bermuda Triangle of Transylvania. People have often claimed that they've seen UFOs and or ghosts in the woods, though no one is sure. But what gets interesting with this type of movement stream, it has a time paradox, or a dimensional paradox, meaning that time dimensional paradox can have an opening of a portal to go through and disappear through, and actually bend the realities of the time itself in that area, which indicates the reasons for these certain trees. And they have one of the legends that talked about a young girl who had entered the forest, was lost for many years. Supposedly she reemerged, not having any memory at all of what happened. They have electronics that get screwed up in the area. They have just the way it feels. The energy is different. It can be thicker.
You know,
it obviously has. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I'm looking at the pictures here that you sent, and the trees are all bent. It's like an energy or a force. I don't want to say a wind, but I don't know what you guys know about trees, but they take a long ass time to grow. And in order for something to take a curve near the trunk of the tree and make like a C, that takes a tremendous amount of power and force consistently, constant, to make that bend, because the tree's just not going to grow bent like that unless it's trying to avoid something or unless something's pushing against it. That looks crazy to me. And the second thing I want to point out is on the note that you sent here about the girl you just mentioned about reemerging from the forest. 5 years later, she appeared unaged and unable to remember where she'd been. I think back to when I first saw the movie Close Encounters way back in the day, and that flight crew came off that ship, and it was the flight crew from World War II era that had been missing from the Devil's Triangle or Bermuda Triangle area of Florida here. That whole crew, they came off. They still had their World War II gear on. They looked like they just came from central casting for a World War II movie. They didn't age or anything. Do you think that this type of energy, this type of situation is similar to something from another planet or so, like I saw in Close Encounters?
Yeah, moving to another time dimensional redox form, very possible. And they also have a notable feature of the forest is a large, nearly perfect circular clearing where no trees grow. Soil samples and tests have been improved and conclusive in explaining the phenomenon, which goes even more to explaining that there is a dimensional portal there. And that dimensional portal could possibly pose as an opening in certain areas in the forest.
You know, we've talked about crop circles and things of that nature in the past, and there's been documentation that when sightings have occurred, UFO, UAP sightings have occurred, that the areas where it's been, nothing will grow there. And same thing with crop circles. There's certain crop circles that's it. There's going to be a permanent indentation. You can clear the crop, clear the land, and you could see the difference again in the crop and its ability to grow or not grow or grow differently in those areas. It's amazing to me that this can go on. To me, this reeks of somebody knows about this. Some sort of governmental agency knows it. Yeah, so somebody knows. Somebody may be using this.
Yeah, something actually. It's a diplomated, and if you look at a sense about the UFOs, and they have sightings there. That circular objectory scene can create a dimensional overlay. And it can be incorporated through higher entities projected to that scene as a portal in or out of that dimensional overlay. And that is why there can be disappearances in certain areas. And we have discussed about Bermuda Triangle before and how that accumulated stream still does go through extraterrestrials and through cooperative military and government. It connects to intergarthan realms, and this could connect to a higher dimensional realm. or something on a frequency stream from another dimension altogether, but it's still projected on a term that higher entities are watching over or distributing back and forth between the actual overlay structure of the paranormal realms that hit in between that layer. Dimensions have layers, and those layers can hit paranormal realms and frequency streams.
You know, it's curious to me because a lot of people don't realize that Romania and the United States are on friendly terms. We're allies. I know where Romania is, it doesn't seem that way, but since this is what's reported, so take it for what it is. I plugged it in the Google box here, and it could be bad information here, but it says since 2016, nearly $500 million in state and Department of Defense security assistance and security cooperation has been funded to Romania. At about $6 million a year, I think they could maintain and utilize this portal, utilize this technology, utilize this situation. Maybe this is like their Area 51?
As a possible attribute for that, but the areas accumulated around it could pose as some type of base too. It would have to be delved in deeper. And we already know about Transylvania. We already know about certain other paranormal sightings that are in terms with that.
That's crazy stuff. Have you visited? Are you planning on visiting anytime soon? I think that's great. Are we ready to talk about the SCP Foundation?
Yes, SCP-132, Broken Desert. SCP-132 takes the form of a series of a certain type of glass tetrahedrons, each with a side length of 10.3 centimeters, so they're not that big. Each instance of SCP-132 appears to contain a patch of desert sand, and occasionally scorpions and other desert creatures enter the confines of the interior of SCP-132 as if it were a continuous piece of desert. Creatures within it have shown no awareness of the existence of anything outside of it, and attempts to influence the area within it have failed. So anyone trying to manipulate the inside aerial effect of the dihedron have failed to do such. The reviews of the surveillance life within it has proven inconsistent. Clusters of contagious instances have been internally consistent and have been confined to display areas of every major desert. So the ones that they find that pretty much teleport in a way into these dihedrons, they cannot find that specified being outside of it. But they have notified that there are major deserts that accumulated with similar aspects of these entities. But they cannot find exact locations.
You know, I find it curious looking at the picture here. The tetrahedron, for folks that don't know, looks very pyramid-like. And I find it curious that this is broken desert, and there's part of a desert inside this tetrahedron.
Exactly.
Where do we find pyramids, folks?
This gets interesting. Parts of major deserts accumulated into these tetrahedrons that have certain specified species that end up portalizing inside of it. But their DNA is different, and they have an intact DNA, though, that does sequence to the singular major intact desert. It's like a type of a portal, if you will, on the physical layout stream. Don't be surprised because it has that trilateral form that it could have been created from the ancient Atlantean races of humanoids, or the Intergarthan races, or as well as the Anunnaki itself.
Wow, that's crazy. But, you know, it's funny because it's almost like the this entity, this alien being, the DNA, what have you, in the tetrahedron is just waiting to be activated. Where have we heard that today? That's very interesting stuff. This is contained. I have nothing to worry about, or this is something I should still be on the lookout for?
It's contained by a Foundation site. They'd still obviously do testing to perimeters between the dimensions to where the overlay is incubated for.
Very interesting. What's this next SCP we're going to talk about?
276, Time Schooner. SCP-276 has a variable shape, size, and mass, but always appears to be a nautical vessel and make and model relevant to whatever era it exists in. Currently, it takes the form of a large sailing schooner. Under normal conditions, it operates as a standard sailing vessel capable of achieving 16.2 knots at optimal conditions, regardless of its current manifestation. But what gets interesting with this type of entity is that his motivational speeds has a forward, neutral, and backward time mode. So because of that, any humanized entity that goes in it can go back in time with this, but it cannot be alternated to where that it only goes to a perimeter to where a humanoid can go for. So if it's way too far back and there's not a human existence there, it won't go that far back. It won't go too far ahead where there's not human existence either. And depending on the timeline innovator and the sequencing throttle, will depend on the accumulation of the entity that's on it. Even animals, they could alternate form, depending on the conjuncture of the timeline that this ship goes through. But no one can mess with the space-time continuum because it has a locking sequencing code.
You know, as you were telling me about this, a couple of things come to mind. And one of them is the Philadelphia experiment. And we've talked about that in the past. Very similar. There was the ability to shift or move something. This was a project in the Navy in World War II area where they were trying to cloak or camouflage or make the ship and its sailors disappear. And there's a movie about it and everything, so it must be true. But also, it came to my mind here. It's a time traveling type vessel. Haven't we seen stuff like this recently? And I say recently, within our lifetime here, with the Pirates of the Caribbean or the Johnny Depp character. I forget what that was all called, but it looked like these ships were coming from the past and dead people and stuff. Do you think that's similar? Do you think it's like what we've talked about before, how Hollywood imitates what's really going on, so it slowly drips out? Do you think that those things are similar?
Well, this type of entity, a boat, only goes to eras of time that have boats. It doesn't go too far back or too far forward into the future. An affiliated term still has to have a humanoid product within those timelines. So it's a little bit different. It has an exceptionalized term that only goes to certain time peripheral movement speeds, as well as certain types of items that will have to go through with it. I mean, if you think about Pirates of the Caribbean, yeah, I mean, could be similar. It's only activated on a boat's term. It's only activated on time control, the interwave phase of the oceanic perimeters. I wouldn't be surprised if the Atlanteans or Atlantic societies, like we just talked about, certain oceanic or higher generalized societies of humans had maintained something similar to this. That's not impossible. There are ways to activate the timeline loops upon certain structures or items or entities.
Is this one thing, the schooner? Is this one, or is there more than one?
Of this certain model, there is just that one, but I'm sure there are several other types of time indexer streams out there. But of this certain type, there is just that, and it's in the hands of the Foundation right now.
You know, it also makes me wonder, are we hiding things like this in plain sight? For instance, we live in a peninsula, we live in Florida, we live with there's a lot of water around us, and there are period timepiece vessels that you can visit. In Tampa Bay, they have the big pirate festival every year, and they have an old pirate type ship, and you can ride on it and so forth. We've talked about it before with hiding things in plain sight. Do you think it's possible this is out there in plain sight, or is this contained where we can't even see it?
Well, they do have entities of a paranormal descent of items, or even just biological entities or foundations in plain sight, because they can't keep it in one spot. So they have to find a way to stabilize around the normal motions of mankind with these types of objects and or entities.
Interesting. Interesting stuff. Hey, what do we have to report from the Space Force and the Federation?
Well, just like what you discussed earlier, similar to attack on Trump. It does get deeper, folks. It goes deeper to the point that there's a possibility that our government is behind the scenes of this shit. That it's compromised. That we have too much of a compromising government that is pushing itself to the left now and wants to take away something that could pose a good term and equalize the planet again. This is scary, people. Now, if this is the case, we need to start digging into who we're putting in the office and why. And then we're going to have to really dig hard into our laws. This is not about pointing to what color you are or what gender or what this or what that, if you will. It's pointing to out to we got to maintain the existence of who and what we are. And then not pose such a threat against each other. For shame on those that want to. Let's get over the bits of willy-nilly bullcrap between each other. Let's get over it. Let's grow up. And let's see what we can do to maintain our levels again. Because I'm going to tell you one thing, people. If we have Miss Harrison, and she goes as president, that's it. There is no way that type of subjugated term could be proposed proper. The fundamental laws are way too up and down. There's too much crime out there. There's too much drugs out there. You want a free country? Fine with me. But with the free country comes the proper common sense. Not do what you want, when you want, how you want, and where you want. That is an unpropositional effect that will not happen correctly. Number one. Number two, artificial sweetener may be wreaking havoc on microorganisms. Natural sugar, folks, come on. You know, you'd have no idea what they're putting into sweeteners nowadays, even the products of certain foods. Be careful. Because this type of sweetener is not breaking down properly in the body. And there are certain other foods out there that don't break down proper on the body. And it can make it worse for you.
Wow. Crazy stuff.
Other thing.
Yeah, I could do a whole show in response to what you said. Go ahead.
One more thing is Acoma lands $480 million Space Force contract to modernize satellite-controlled network. So the improvising on a wavelength to help protection screens and layouts of certain comm and communicative array streams, as well as maintaining the defensive units that what goes on corrective terms when it deals with the things in space. And believe it or not, we already know about wars and certain wars that deal with the internet. And electromagnetic wars. Well, we'll also deal with space wars. We're dealing with things in space nobody has any idea of. And it also maintains the codes of ethics for this planet. So whatever goes on up there goes on here and has to be protected proper both ways.
Well said.
We don't want older technology, including satellite control technology, that would create more definitive harm. We have to upgrade and put proper AUI or innovative systems in to maintain the codes of ethics here. More protection. Everything's not always a hit and engage thing physically. There are things that are being technologically attacked.
Wow. Deep stuff. Again, we could talk a whole show about that there. Hey, let's talk about the ET or mythological creature of the week.
Well, those are the realm of extraterrestrial or elite creatures. We're the Reptilian Gray. Now, what gets interesting is a hybrid race of advanced lizard-like aliens known as the Reptilian Greys dwell beneath the Earth's surface, intervening in human affairs. Standing at a modest 5 feet, these enigmatic beings boast oversized cranium, piercing black eyes, and distinctive leather-like scaly skin, setting them apart in the annals of extraterrestrial encounters. They are a mix of the infamous Draconian and a reptilian mix and the Matrix Gray. They are a mix of both a reptilian and a gray substandard bone. Most humans are not aware that they actually have a sequencing mix that run and order these other species, these other subspecies around. But these are convicted as well. And they are subjugated against their own term from higher entities.
I always thought it was either reptilian or gray, but this is a combination, kind of like
hybrid.
Kind of like we have mixed races here on planet Earth. I guess it's very similar. Again, I want to be clear: reptilian grays, good guy or bad guy?
Well, they're subjugated on a negative term, but the controversy lies that the matriarch, the Matrix Gray, have them against their own wills. And they have to put onto their own term because of that and work accordingly with the certain draconian species. The draconian species are against their own will too, subjugated by negative higher terms of the real reptilian societies. They have their own mind control, their own mind ensnarements against them as well. It's not just humans. There are extraterrestrial entities that are forced against their will from other species. Now, if these types of species could be reanimated or regeneralized back to a neutral term, then there's hope. Otherwise, they just keep polarizing negative aspects outwards.
Wow. Amazing. Amazing stuff again today, Blue, in episode 61. Man, we do these episodes and I'm so into it. And all of a sudden I look at the clock and it's like, hey, you're almost out of time. And that's what happens when you're having a good time. Time flies when you're having fun. So I hope you had fun today, folks. I hope you enjoyed episode 61. Blue, I look forward to episode 62.
Thank you, Mike.
All right. We'll see you next time, folks.